12 brand new boats are sitting on American dealer lots this summer that almost nobody is buying. And I'm going to give you all 12, what each one really costs, why the market turned its back on it, and what a dealer will actually take for one before the leaves change, not rumor. Registration data, bankruptcy filings, and earnings calls where the people who build these things say the quiet part out loud. Here's the number that frames everything. New powerboat retail unit sales fell 8.8% in 2025 to 215,237 units, down from 236,070 the year before. And it didn't stop there. On a rolling 12-month basis through February 2026, sales were still down 8.8%. at 214,115 units, with performance across the key segments described as mixed. Mixed is a polite word. I'll give you the unpolite version in a minute. I've had my hands inside enough of these hulls to know what a boat that's been sitting looks like before I read the stock tag. The chalk starting on the gel coat above the rub rail, the trailer tires with the sidewall cracks, the battery that won't hold anything because nobody's put a charger on it since it came off the truck. That's the tell. A boat doesn't rot from the water. It rots from standing still. 3 things to stay for. Number 4 is a boat with a list price that runs north of $350,000 for a machine that will never touch salt water. Number 8 is a builder whose gross revenue went from just under $15 million to $403,000 in about 18 months. And I have the case number. And number 11 is 2 famous American boat brands that changed hands for a combined $17.9 million, which, once you know what they cost to acquire, is one of the more brutal receipts in this whole industry. The thread running through every one of these 12 is the same, so let me put it on the table now. Almost all of these boats were designed, priced, and optioned for a buyer who existed in 2021 and does not exist in 2026. That buyer had stimulus money, a lockdown summer, a 3% loan, and no patience. Dealers couldn't get boats fast enough. They were selling pontoons while they were still in the crate. Builders responded the way any business responds. More content, more screens, more upholstery, bigger engines, higher prices. Then the money got expensive, and the buyer went quiet. And what's left on the lot is a physical monument to a customer who went home. Keep that comparison in your head as we go. Built for a buyer who no longer exists. And watch how differently it lands depending on whether the boat costs $18,000 or $380,000. Number 1, the leftover bowrider with a sterndrive in it. This is the single worst piece of inventory in the business right now, and it's not close. In the first half of 2025, retail unit sales of sterndrive boats fell 20.1%, while the market overall was down single digits. That's not softness, that's an evacuation. And the reason is mechanical, not fashionable. A sterndrive puts an automotive-style engine block inside the boat, under a hatch, with a drive unit hanging off the transom through a hole in the hull. Everything about it that's clever is also something that can go wrong. The bellows, the gimbal bearing, the exhaust that runs wet, the drive that has to come off to do the seals. Meanwhile, outboards got quiet, got clean, got 4-stroke reliable, and left you an engine bolted outside the boat where you can actually reach it. Outboard-powered boats now represent 67% of total retail sales. So when a dealer has a 19-foot IO runabout sitting there from a previous model year, they are holding a boat that the mass market has decided against on the merits. It'll be discounted hard. And honestly, for a freshwater lake boat that gets pulled out every fall, it can be a legitimately good buy. Just understand you are buying into a shrinking service population, and check the exhaust manifolds and risers on anything that sat 2 seasons through a humid summer, because condensation doesn't care that the boat is technically new. That one dies of engineering. The next one dies of arithmetic. Number 2, the 6-figure luxury tritoon. Pontoons have been the industry's growth story for 15 years, and they have taken the sharpest fall of any volume segment. Pontoon retail sales were down 12.5% on a rolling 12-month basis through February 2026, and through January, the figure came in at 13%. The boats that are stuck aren't the simple ones, it's the top of the range. The 25-footer with twin engines, a slide, a bar, a powered top, and a screen at the helm bigger than my first television, priced past $100,000. Here's the part that should give you pause. Sources genuinely disagree on how fast these things fall. Pontoon-specific analysis puts the first-year loss at 20 to 30% of value the moment it leaves the lot, while the NADA Marine Appraisal Guide describes a typical fiberglass powerboat losing 10 to 15% in year 1 and 6 to 10% per year through year 5. I'll take the conservative end because I'd rather be wrong in your favor. But even at the mild number, on a $110,000 tritoon, year 1 costs you more than a decent used truck. That's not the dealer's fault, and it isn't a scandal. It's just true, and nobody says it out loud in the showroom. Number 3, the high-end personal watercraft. Short one, because the story is simple. PWC sales fell 10.8%. These are the definition of a discretionary purchase financed on a payment. And the NMMA's own chief executive noted the financial pressure hit entry-level buyers hardest, particularly where financing costs bite. Lots are full of the 3-seat supercharged models with the audio packages. The plain ones still move, which brings us to a boat that costs more than most houses in the county I grew up in. Number 4, and this is the one I flagged, the premium wake surfboat. A Malibu Wakesetter 23 LSV starts somewhere around $145,000 to $175,000. The 25 LSV runs $175,000 to $220,000. And the flagship M240 tops out north of $350,000. That is for an inboard boat, 24 feet long, that lives on a lake and pulls a person on a board. And I want to be clear, because people get defensive here, and they're entitled to, these are genuinely impressive machines. Ballast is the biggest single factor in wave size, and modern wake boats carry anywhere from 2,500 to 4,500 pounds of water ballast, with premium models filling in under 3 minutes. The surf systems, Malibu's Surfgate, Nautique's NSS, Mastercraft's Gen 2, Tugs taps, shape the wave by deflecting water off the hull so you can switch sides without moving a single passenger. That's real engineering. I've stood next to the hardware and been impressed. But look at what got built on top of it. A premium tower on its own can run $5,000 to $15,000. Ballast that heavy means you are hauling 2 tons of water at speed all day, which is why these boats drink fuel the way they do. And the segment turned. Wake sport boats were down 9.9% in the first half of 2025. What's sitting on lots now is the fully loaded configuration, the one the dealer ordered in 2023 because in 2021 the loaded ones sold first. There's a used market with real depth behind it too. Scroll the listings and you'll find 2022 and 2023 G-Series boats around $200,000 and 8 to 10-year-old boats at $50,000 to $75,000. When a 3-year-old boat does 90% of what the new one does, the new one has a math problem, and no brochure fixes it. Stop the count for a second, because you've now seen enough to spot the pattern. Every one of these first 4 failed at the top of its range, not the bottom. The entry-level version is still finding buyers. It's the loaded, optioned, screen-covered flagship that's growing algae on the trailer. That's the shape of this whole downturn. Not people leaving boating, people refusing the expensive version of it. From here, it escalates because the next several aren't just slow-selling models. They're categories with builders going dark behind them, and one of them ends in a bankruptcy court in Delaware. That's number 8. I haven't forgotten. Number 5, the 19-foot jet boat. Jet boats fell 14.4% in the first half of 2025, the steepest drop of any segment except sterndrives. Jet propulsion is a beautiful idea for a family boat. No propeller under the swim platform, shallow draft, instant thrust. And one company owns this category almost entirely. Yamaha Jet Boat Manufacturing sits on Tellico Lake in East Tennessee and builds 19, 22, 25, and 27-foot open bow boats with roughly 700 people at the Venore plant. Now here's where I mark my reasoning as reasoning, because I don't want to hand you a guess dressed up as news. In August 2026, Yamaha announced it would stop building its own side-by-sides after the 2026 model year at its Newnan, Georgia plant, shifting resources toward ATVs, golf cars, and personal watercraft, with about 300 positions affected. That was a power sports decision, not a boat decision. Nobody has announced anything about jet boats, but I read the list of categories they named as growth, and I noticed which one wasn't on it. And if I owned a jet boat dealership, I'd have noticed the same thing. That's a suspicion, not a fact. Treat it as one. Number 6, the electric day boat. And this is where the story stops being about slow sales and starts being about companies that no longer exist. X-Shore, the Swedish builder of electric power boats that had become a favorite for super yacht tenders and chase boats, is officially out of business, announced by its founder in late January 2026. The sequence is worth knowing. The parent company filed for insolvency in Stockholm District Court in October 2025. The court-appointed administrator sought offers, and none materialized by the November deadline. Unpaid rent on the factory came to 17 million Swedish krona, about $1.9 million. Those boats started around $250,000, and the company had taken in 8.5 million euros from investors for product development in 2024 alone. Meanwhile, the money hasn't left the sector, it's just moved. ARC out of Los Angeles raised $50 million in March 2026, and is pushing into commercial and even defense propulsion, with a consumer lineup running from a $300,000 ARC 1 and a $268,000 ARC Sport down to the $168,000 ARC Coast. And Candela took 30 million euros from existing investors and the IFC, sitting on a backlog of more than 65 vessels, mostly, and this is the point, public transport boats for city services in Stockholm, Gothenburg, Oslo, and Trondheim. Read that carefully. Electric works beautifully where a boat runs a fixed route every day and returns to the same charger. It works terribly as a weekend toy you tow to a lake with no shore power. The technology isn't the failure. The use case was. You're most of the way through the 12 now, and the second half is where the bigger boats start falling over. If you want the rest of these as they land, subscribe. That's the whole ask. Coming up, a trawler builder's final numbers, an American sailboat plant with the lights off, and the 2 brands that sold for less than a single waterfront house in Fort Lauderdale. Number 7, the 30-something express cruiser. Cruisers and runabouts showed more pronounced softness than the market, and the reason isn't the boat, it's the second bill. A cruiser is the first boat most people can't keep in the driveway. A typical monthly slip runs $15 to $35 per foot per month, which is roughly $450 to $400 for a 30-foot boat, and a 30-foot slip in a quiet Gulf Coast marina might be $600 a month, while the same slip in a premium New England harbor can top $3,500. Then insurance, where coastal owners often face named storm deductibles calculated as a percentage of the boat's value rather than a flat dollar figure. Run one honest example. An $85,000 26-foot bowrider, 15% down, financed at 7.5% for 15 years, is a $679 loan payment. And once you add slip, insurance, maintenance at 10%, fuel, and registration, the true monthly cost lands near $2,137, 3 times the payment. That gap is where cruisers go to die on a dealer lot, because the buyer does that math in the parking lot on their phone and drives home. Number 8. The long-range trawler. And here's the loop I promised. Kadey-Krogen Yachts filed for voluntary Chapter 7 bankruptcy on July 6, 2026, ending new production at the Rhode Island company behind one of America's best-known long-range cruising trawler brands. The petition went in under case number 26 Lemo65 BLS in Delaware, with the parent company and American Tugs filing separately the same day. And the numbers inside the filing are the thing I can't stop thinking about. Gross revenue was about $14.9 million in 2024. It fell to roughly $10.1 million in 2025. For 2026, at the point of filing, revenue stood at $403,962, $400,000, for a company that built almost 700 yachts across nearly 5 decades and became one of the best-known names in the passage-making world. And the largest single unsecured claim tells you exactly how modern boat building works. $1,531,708 owed to Asia Harbor Yacht Builders in Taiwan, the yard that actually built the hulls. Small note on the history. One source dates the founding to 1976 and another to 1977, and I'm not going to pretend I can settle it, so call it the late 70s. Art Kadey and Jim Krogen set out to build a full-displacement cruising trawler with the seakeeping of a North Sea fishing boat and the interior of a proper liveaboard. And the first design, the Krogen 42, ran 206 hulls over 22 years. 206 of one design. Try getting that today. Number 9. The production cruising sailboat. If you've been sailing 30 years, you already felt this one coming. Catalina Yachts announced it was stopping production after current orders were filled, with President Patrick Turner citing short-term financial challenges and calling it a temporary production pause. That's the company statement. Here's the reporting that followed. In October, the plant was shut down and the workforce laid off, with the Largo, Florida factory dark and a dispute playing out between the company's buyer and seller. After Catalina and sibling brand True North were acquired by Daedalus Yachts founder Michael Reardon in the spring of 2025, and Catalina wasn't alone. Compact Yachts closed its doors in May of the same year. I'll tell you plainly that I don't know where Catalina stands as you're watching this, and I'm not going to guess. What I do know is the scale of what's idle. More than 80,000 boats built. One account puts it above 85,000 hulls. So somewhere in that neighborhood. The concerning part, as one sailing publication put it, is the failure of succession planning at some of the most successful brands, and the lesson that production builders need scale and continuous innovation to survive. A new Catalina on a dealer's lot right now is a strange object, a good boat from a factory that isn't running. Second breather, because the pattern shifted again and you should see it. The first 6 items were boats people stopped choosing. Items 7 through 9 are boats whose builders stopped, or nearly stopped, existing. And the failures cluster at the 2 ends. The expensive slow boats and the sailboats, both of which need a patient buyer with time. The last 3 are different again. They're the ones where somebody big made a corporate decision, and the boat on the lot is the residue. That's where number 11 lives, with the $17.9 million receipt. Number 10, the big multi-outboard center console. Fast 1. Saltwater fishing boats were down 8.6%, and the boats hanging around are the biggest ones with the most engines on the back. The engines are the story. A new outboard replacement runs $8,000 to $25,000. Multiply by 3, then add rigging, and you understand why a buyer looks at a triple-engine boat with 25 on the paperwork and does not get out of the truck. Worth noting, the very top of the market didn't blink. Yachts were the only segment to post growth in that period, up 1.8%. Whatever's squeezing everybody else isn't touching the people buying at that level. Number 11, the Orphaned brand. And this is the receipt. In October 2024, BRP announced it was starting a process to sell its marine businesses, Alumacraft, Manitou, and Trawler, plus marine parts and accessories, while keeping Sea-Doo watercraft, Sea-Doo switch pontoons, and jet propulsion. The stated reason was to double down on core power sports. Alumacraft went to Brighton Marine Group, America's largest privately owned aluminum boat builder, and Trawler was agreed to Yamaha Motor Australia. Manitou went to members of the Marcotte family, the owners of Bentley Pontoons. Now the number, straight out of BRP's own annual filing. The sales of Alumacraft's and Manitou's assets closed for a combined consideration totaling $17.9 million US. Two well-known American boat brands, one of them a name that had been part of family memories for more than 75 years, for less than the asking price of a single large waterfront property. And the Trawler deal didn't even go through. The Australian Competition and Consumer Commission moved to oppose the sale to Yamaha in December 2025, and the business stayed in the sale process. If you're standing on a lot looking at an aluminum boat or a pontoon whose brand has changed hands twice in 18 months, that's the context. The boat is fine. The parts counter behind it is the question. Number 12, the one with your name on it. Not a model, a condition, the unit that's been through 2 boat shows and come home both times. Any boat that didn't sell at the show is more negotiable afterward because the dealer paid for the space, the trucking, and the labor and got nothing. And that unsold showboat is a sore spot. Add the calendar, showroom traffic drops 40 to 60% from summer peaks. And boats listed in October in northern markets sit unsold until spring, compressing prices 5 to 15% against identical boats listed in April. This is the single most negotiable object in the marine industry, and it is hiding in plain sight in the back row. One caution, because I'd be doing you a disservice otherwise. There's a difference between a discounted boat and a neglected one. Ask the dealer directly how many days the boat has been on the lot. Most know it off the top of their head. And understand that the longer it's been there, the more room you have. But then go look at it like a mechanic, not a shopper. Trailer tires with sidewall cracks, dead batteries, fuel that's been in the tank through a full summer, and a warranty clock that in many cases starts at delivery, not at build. Get that in writing. Now the part that actually matters, and I want you in the chair for it, because somebody is coming for your money with a vocabulary. You have been taught 3 words, MSRP, clearance, and we're not getting any more of these. Let's take them apart, one at a time, with the arithmetic sitting next to them. Start with what a sitting boat costs the person who owns it. By October, a boat that arrived on the lot in April has been accruing floor plan interest for 6 months. At 6% annually, a $100,000 boat has cost the dealer $3,000 in interest alone, money they'll never recover unless they sell it. So there's a clock on that hull, and it isn't your clock. And every day it ticks, your position gets stronger. Nobody hands you that fact. Then there's money on the boat you will never see on your paperwork. When manufacturers announce the next model year, typically September or October, every unsold prior year boat becomes less desirable overnight, and dealers receive factory rebates of $2,000 to $8,000 per boat to move that inventory. Read that again. There is a payment from the factory attached to the specific boat you are standing next to, and its entire purpose is to fund a discount to you. Whether any of it reaches you is a negotiation you were never told was happening. And now the third word, the scarcity. In April 2026, 67% of dealers surveyed reported new boat inventory was too high, up from roughly half in March and February. One dealer's comment in that same survey is the most honest sentence in this entire script. Let's hope manufacturers do not try to load us up with 2027s when the 25s and 26 are still on our lot. Hope. That's the word a business uses when the decision isn't theirs. So was it hope well placed? Brunswick, the largest company in this industry, owner of Boston Whaler, Sea Ray, Bayliner, Lund, and Harris, with roughly 14,500 employees in 26 countries, told its investors in writing what the plan was. Wholesale shipments are expected to outpace retail in a flat market, up mid-single digits for boats, to rebalance lean dealer pipelines. In plain English, more boats will be shipped to dealers than the public is expected to buy, on purpose, in a market they themselves describe as flat to slightly up. That is not a conspiracy. It is a completely rational, publicly disclosed business decision by people managing a factory. But it is the exact opposite of scarcity, and it is announced to shareholders while the word used on the showroom floor is clearance. Here's the cold part. The dealer standing in front of you often isn't the one running this play. MarineMax, the world's largest recreational boat retailer, reported a 7% decline in same-store sales for the quarter ending June 30th, 2026, and cut inventories by $118 million year over year. OneWater reported new boat revenue down 5.9% on lower unit volumes, while its pre-owned boat revenue rose 24%. Down on new, up a quarter on used. Your neighbors already figured this out. The pressure runs downhill. Factory to dealer to the guy signing the paperwork on a Saturday. And the language gets prettier at every step down. So the accusation is narrow, and I'll state it precisely. Not that boats are a ripoff. Not that dealers are crooks. Most of the ones I've dealt with are decent people with an interest bill. The lie is the shape of the story. You are told the boat is scarce, and the discount is generous, when the boat is abundant, and the discount is largely pre-funded by the factory and already priced in. Once you know that, we're not getting any more of these, stops being pressure, and starts being information. It tells you they need this one gone. Let me pull the camera back, because there's something underneath all of this that I find genuinely encouraging. What we're actually watching is a whole country of people rediscovering how to judge value. Not rate a price, judge a value. That's a skill, and it's one that atrophied for about 4 years while everything appreciated and no decision could be wrong. Now the market is handing it back. People are looking at a 3-year-old boat and a new one and doing the comparison honestly. Registered boats in use across the U.S. run to about 11 million, and spending on accessories and boating outings reached $24.5 billion in 2024 and is expected to hold through 2026. Participation didn't fall. People didn't stop loving the water. They stopped agreeing to the price of the newest version of it, and that is not a crisis. That's judgment coming back online. And judgment transfers. The same instinct that makes you ask what a boat has really cost to sit there is the one that makes you ask why the lifetime warranty ends when the company does, or why the replacement part costs a third of the machine. You learn it once on one purchase, and it never leaves you. So here's the procedure, not a rule of thumb, something you can actually run on real numbers. 1. Get the lot age. Ask how many days that specific hull has been in stock, and ask for the stock number. Then check whether it's still listed 3 weeks later. 2. Ask what factory program is currently attached to that model year, out loud, by name. You may not get an answer, but the question tells them you know one exists. 3. Get an out-the-door number in writing with freight, prep, rigging, and dock fees included, because those are where a headline discount goes to be quietly refilled. 4. Before you sign anything, price the slipper storage, the insurance quote for your actual mooring location. Moving a mooring from an inland lake to a waterfront marina raised one quote by about 30%. And a survey if it applies, at roughly $15 to $25 a foot. 5. And this is the one that decides it. Find the same boat, 2 to 3 years old, and get its real asking price. A 2 or 3 year old boat has already absorbed the steepest depreciation while often still being in excellent condition. Then apply the walkaway test. If the gap between the new boat's out-the-door number and the 2-year-old boat's number is bigger than the value you place on a factory warranty and a clean history, you walk. If it's smaller, buy the new one and enjoy it without a second thought. That's it. That's the whole decision. And it's yours, not theirs. Do one thing tonight. Pull up the new inventory page of the nearest 3 dealers to you and sort by oldest listing. Write down 2 stock numbers and the prices. Then look again in 3 weeks. By the end of the month, you'll know more about your local market than the salesperson will assume you know, and you'll have paid nothing for it. Now tell me where you're watching from, because this varies enormously, and I only know what I've seen. What's rotting on the lots near you? Is it pontoons? Is it sterndrives? Is it the big center consoles nobody can fuel? What does a slip actually cost per foot where you are, and did it go up this season? A boat that's unsellable in Minnesota in November is a hot commodity in Florida in February, and the people in the comments are the only ones who can map that. If you've got a confession instead, the option package you paid for and never used once, that's welcome too. I read them, all of them, and the corrections more carefully than the compliments. And if you know more about this than I do, come and say so. Somebody watching this rigs boats for a living, or works that finance desk, or has a plant floor under their boots. And I would rather be corrected in public than be confidently wrong. Bring the number. There's one thread here I deliberately left alone, and it's the tariff on metal. A 50% duty on imported steel and aluminum affecting roughly 96,000 aluminum boats, about 55% of everything sold in this country, against the fact that 95% of boats sold in America are built here. Those two facts sit strangely together, and I'm still working out how much of it actually reaches the sticker. Subscribe if you want to be here when I've got that straight, because I'm not letting it go. Until then, check the lot age, get it out the door in writing, and don't let anybody tell you the last one is the last one.